You can have, say, all the tech, but if you haven't got the housekeepers, you haven't got the process, the on-the-ground people really well trained, you're not going to be able to grow your brand and not going to be able to scale the business.
Welcome to the second season of the Modern Hotelier, the fastest growing hospitality podcast. Both hosts were named top 100 most powerful people in hospitality and voted fourth most popular podcast by the International Hospitality Institute. Each episode will get to know an industry expert and we'll discuss the latest trends in hospitality to help you, the Modern Hotelier. Welcome to another episode of the Modern Hotelier. I'm your host, David Maloney.
I'm your co-host, Steve Karen.
And I'm the producer, John Boomhofer.
Today's episode is sponsored by SmartBrief. SmartBrief is the leading publisher of targeted business news and information by industry. By combining technology and editorial expertise, SmartBrief delivers the most relevant industry news in partnership with leading trade associations, professional societies, nonprofits, and corporations. The SmartBrief network comprises 275 newsletters across 14 major business sectors, reaching over 6 million subscribers. Specific to the travel and hospitality market, SmartBrief publishes newsletters for the hotel, casino, airline, travel advisor, business traveler, and resort development markets, reaching over 100,000 subscribers. The Hotel and Lodging SmartBrief is published daily, and you can subscribe to all SmartBrief newsletters at smartbrief.com/subscribe.
Steve, who do we have on the program today?
Yeah, David, today we have on Dale Smith, the founder and CEO of the SDDE Smith Group. Dale's a successful property entrepreneur with over 15 years of experience in residential, commercial, and holiday home property investment, property development, and property management. Welcome to the show, Dale.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me. Really looking forward to being on the show.
Thanks, Dale. So we're going to go through 3 sections. We're going to ask you some questions to get to know you better. We're going to go through your career, and then we're going to get into some industry topics. Sound good?
Perfect. Yep. Looking forward to it.
All right. So great. So first question is, what's the worst job you've ever had?
Worst job I've ever had, probably being a car valeter, car cleaning. So back when I was younger, my family background's in the automotive sector, so out on the forecourt cleaning cars.
Are you a morning or a night person?
Definitely a night person. If
You could only leave 3 apps on your phone. What 3 apps would you leave? You got to delete everything else except 3.
Okay. LinkedIn, my Whoop, and Google Drive.
What's the most used emoji for you? What do you use the most?
Probably the smiley face, I think. Yeah. I'm a fan of the smiley face.
What's your favorite song? You got one song you can listen to. You're chilling out. What's the one song you like?
One song, probably an Arctic Monkeys track, which I don't know whether you guys might have heard of Arctic Monkeys, but yeah, an Arctic Monkeys track on the dance floor, something like that.
Cool. What's the favorite place you've ever traveled to?
San Diego is still my favorite place, I think.
Wow. If you had your own talk show, who would your first guest be?
Who would it be? Michael Jordan.
And so now if you had a time machine and you could go into the past or into the future, which way would you go and what year would you go to?
Oh, I would go to the past and I'd probably go to something in like the 1600s. I'm a medieval type fan, yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. That was great. Now we'll get to know a little bit about you, where you came from, things like that. So you're from the UK. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in the northeast of England, a small town called Saltburn. That's right in between Newcastle and Leeds, but on the coast. So I grew up, born and raised there, and then moved away to the US actually for college when I was 18.
So how did growing up there kind of shape who you are today?
Love being by the sea, to be honest with you. We're really lucky. Saltburn's right on the coast, really good access to North Yorkshire Moors, which is, beautiful moorlands and hills, rolling hills, hiking, that type of thing. So off the back of that, quite naturally, a really kind of sports-driven, outdoorsy type person. And I really love that about where we're from.
So you got a golf scholarship to the University of San Diego. What was it like for you coming from the UK and living in the US?
Loved it, David. Literally lived the dream for 4 years for me. So I was really keen when I was looking at universities going to either kind of south to East Coast or West Coast. Again, being from Saltburn, being used to being by the beach, that was a key factor for me. So I was really set on kind of Florida or Southern California. Ended up choosing San Diego and absolutely loved it. Like, being honest, being from the UK, going to the US, you guys are distinctly more positive and upbeat about things. And I love that. Like you are, like versus we can be a little bit dour from time to time in the UK. So I really love that. And San Diego was a special place for me. Not only, people I met there and a big part of my life, but just as a place, it's fantastic. It's got so much to offer, great people. So I loved it. Really, really great part of my life.
Were there any growing pains moving from the UK to the United States? Or was it pretty seamless?
No, it was relatively seamless. To be honest, I'm always looking for different things and relatively opportunistic, I suppose. So I love that challenge of that move. Don't get me wrong. That kind of first 6 months of moving over in probably the August time, I was kind of ready to get back home and see family. That Christmas, that period was getting up to Christmas period was the first time I really felt, okay, I'm maybe a little bit homesick and want to get back and see the family. But after that first Christmas, I was like, I was raring to come home, but get back as soon as possible, to be honest.
Yeah.
So,
was there any food you missed or anything you really missed about home?
No, not really. I guess just the US is so big. The thing with England and the UK is you feel a little bit freer to a certain degree, if that makes sense, because things are closer. Where in the US, conceptualizing the fact that you're in one city, but that city's arguably as big as like the region I grew up in. And then to get to the other end of the state is like a 10-hour drive, which is the entire length of the UK. That was a really weird feeling knowing, I don't know how to describe it, but that was probably one of the real differences. But from a food point of view, before I went to the US, I would have said I was quite a fussy eater, but the moving to the US really opened up, again, different culinary experiences, really, different fast food opportunities. Like back then in 2006 in the UK, like fast food for us was Burger King, McDonald's, like, we didn't have Mexican takeaway and all that type of stuff, which you guys have. So real different experience, but I loved it.
Yeah, that's what's great. I mean, I think that's the not biggest misconception, but a lot of people I've worked with in the UK or in Europe, like they can't fathom how big the US is and how the distance between New York to LA and how different New York, Florida, Texas, California, how different the people are. They think it's kind of this, maybe it's a movie or TV thing. They think it's kind of everyone's not the same, but a lot closer than actually we are. And obviously our politics show you that.
Yeah, no, totally. The one biggest difference I see on that is like from a dialect and accent perspective in England, like we can travel 30 minutes in the car and the accent is entirely different, where you don't get that same really rapid variance in the US, and I suppose the UK is maybe a little bit different to quite a lot of countries from that point of view. It's literally 30, 60 minutes and the dialect and tonality and everything changes so drastically, which makes us unique, I suppose.
Awesome. So now we'll get into your career a little bit, kind of find out how you got to where you are today. But your dad, he was actually the one that got you kind of interested in the property side of things, right? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. So my dad started investing in property probably around 2004, I think it was, a couple of years before I left for university. And that really piqued my interest in the property side of things. Obviously, we were, riding the wave, kind of pre-recession at that point in time. So you could make money in property quite easily. But yeah, certainly that piqued my interest. And then I bought my first property just before I left for the US in 2006, just as a buy-to-let property. So not really in line with what we do as core in our operation today. But yeah, so that kind of started my property journey. And then when I left uni and came back to the UK in late 2010, I ended up going into the automotive sector. So as I touched on earlier, family background is in automotive retail. I always thought I wouldn't go into automotive retail, but 2010 wasn't the best time to be graduating for work experience opportunities. So ended up getting into the automotive sector and built the early part of my career in that sector.
Yeah, so you're involved in, it looks like about 10 companies, one soccer club. Most of them you're founder or owner. So what kind of drives you as an entrepreneur? How did you kind of get that entrepreneurial spirit about you?
Probably more problem solving, David, to be honest. That's the bit I really like, the challenge of solving a problem, and whether that's a whether that's just actually taking something that's existing and trying to find a better way of doing it, or whether it's actually a fundamental issue that needs fixing, within an industry, within community, whatever it may be, and the challenge of trying to fix that. I think problem solving and creating solutions and deploying those solutions is really the part that I enjoy. And, that was the bit, kind of going back to my early career in automotive. I started in the marketing department, worked my way through to being commercial director over a 7-year period. And that was very much built on building processes, finding issues in the business, fixing them, developing the process for them, deploying them, then moving on to the next thing. And then when I went into property full time in 2017, that's where we've now evolved into, as you say, 10 different brands, all of which serve a purpose to our core client, but all of which solve a problem to that core client as well, ultimately. And yeah, I think that's ultimately where it comes from. And that's certainly what gets me excited is those challenges, finding those problems, right? How can we fix it? And how do we take that to market?
Awesome. I got to ask about the soccer club. How did that come about? It's the Red Car Athletic Football Club.
That's right.
Tell us more about that, how you got involved with them.
So when I was much younger, my sporting career actually started out in soccer. So from being 8 years old through to 14 years, I played for Middlesbrough Football Club, who are a championship football team. So they're one tier down below the Premier League, the EFL. And obviously, similar to you guys, I suppose our system in the UK, any kids who are good from a sporting perspective end up getting picked up quite early and going that route through from a sporting perspective. And our educational balance with sport is nowhere near as strong as what it is in the US. So I played in the Middlesbrough Soccer Academy from being 8 to 14, and I actually broke my leg playing, which is then how I ended up switching to golf. So when I was much younger, from 4 years old to 8 years old, Red Car Athletic was actually the team that I played for. So at that point in time, they were mainly just a junior football club. They were not as advanced as what Red Car Athletic is now. And then when I moved back to Saltburn in 2017, a couple of years later, I then started getting involved in Red Car Athletic again, mainly from a sponsor point of view and getting involved in, supporting the team and the club from that perspective. And then last year, I was talking to the then chairman, who's now the club president, who's been around, has developed the club over the last almost 30 years and taken it to a point. We decided, right, we'll get involved, we'll take the club over and invest in it and try and build it and move it forward. And it probably has two main things for us, right? Soccer's, I'm massively passionate about it. Soccer's still my number one sport, although golf is what I went on to do at a higher level. Soccer's still the kind of the core, which I suppose is right being an Englishman. But also the football clubs in a society in the UK carry a lot of weight, right? So they're a real core to a local community. So the football club for us is that vehicle to drive change from a community point of view. We want to create facilities that bring people together. We want to use the football club to, again, amplify where we need to promote good in society. So that might be economic challenges. It might be education challenges. We're using the football club as a vehicle to help drive the community forward and solve some of those things. It comes back to that problem solving piece, right? There's lots of things where we are that we need to do better at and we need to fix as a society and a community. We believe football clubs are at the heart of that and can be used as a vehicle to do that.
That's awesome.
Sure. Yeah, and if we pissed anybody off by making you use the word soccer, Steve writes the question so they can send any comments directly.
All right,
Steve. All right, we'll go to the next question. So one of your companies, the SDDE Group, Smith Group, it's a group of 6 client-facing brands in the real estate sector. Explain to us how those all work together.
So what we've got, David, under the SDDE Smith Group, which is effectively the holding company, if you like, we've got multiple different brands. I think we've got, as of today, we've got 11 customer-facing brands. So everything is within the real estate sector. And at the core of that, our largest brand is Host and Stay. So Host and Stay is a vacation rental management business. We manage just under 900 vacation rentals at the moment. And the vast majority of what we do is around servicing those properties and those clients. So to go back to the early days in 2017, when we started with one vacation rental, between March 2017 and launching that vacation rental and December 2018, we'd we'd grown the portfolio to 9 vacation rentals. 2 of those we owned, and 7 of those we just managed for friends, family, friends of friends. There was never really anything more than that to try and push that volume on. We were still doing our own investments in residential property and commercial property as well. But with my background being finance and marketing related, what I loved about vacation rentals was the fact that you could drive performance on a daily basis. You could change the imagery, you could change the description, you can change pricing, you can actually affect that investment and what revenue you could drive from it. Whereas residential and commercial property, it's set and forget, right? You set your rents and then your contract runs, and you might have rent review periods every 3 or 5 years, or whatever it may be, but you can't really drive that. It's not a true operational business. And again, that's where my passion lies. So in December 2018, with those 9 vacation rentals, we said, right, we need to drive this forward. We think we've got a good product. We need to take it to market and start and drive volume in this management service. So Host and Stay as a brand has grown from 9 to just under 900 vacation rentals in that 4.5-year period. That growth has been predominantly organic. We made the first acquisition into Host and Stay of another vacation rental manager 6 weeks ago, beginning of May, 6 weeks ago, and that was 120 units. So we grew organically to around 750, and then we're just the 900 now with that acquisition. Our ambition is to get to 5,000 units by the end of 2025. So we think we'll grow organically to around 2,500, and we'll acquire the other 2,500. So it's a pretty, ballsy roadmap, if you like. But as we've progressed on that journey, what we found is vacation rental market's really fragmented, right? As quite a lot of the hospitality market is, I guess. So if someone wants to invest in a vacation rental, they need to go to a real estate agent to find the property. They then need to come to someone like Host and Stay to say, right, how is that property perform? What's the potential? What's my pricing going to be like? They then need to find someone to do the cleaning and the changeovers and the linen. Then they need a maintenance guy to do call outs. So it's really fragmented. So all we've tried to do all the way through is provide different parts of that process. And where we've grown demand enough, we'll spin that out into an outward facing brand. So if you take Style, which is our interior design business, we would outsource interior design for our owners, because every owner that comes on board with Host and Stay, or not everyone, but 9 out of 10 will ask us the question, right, how do I maximize revenue? Well, if you want to maximize revenue, you need an attractive property marketed in the right way. So we've got to get the style right. So we need to make sure the interiors are functional, but they look great. So we need an interior designer to really maximize that. So we built up that demand, and then once we had sufficient demand, we employed 2 interior designers in-house rather than outsourcing it. And then when we built the demand further, we then launched it as an external brand to service, other holiday homeowners, but also residential and commercial. So every brand within the group has been through that similar journey. So take our legal business, which handles what we call in the UK conveyancing, so the kind of purchase and sale of a property. So again, we had clients and we were referring to another solicitor, to another lawyer. At a certain point in time, that lawyer got capped out on what demand they would cope with. We were starting to have issues on SLA. That then had a knock-on impact on our client service. So, we then thought, right, well, we need to do our own version of this. So Joanne, who did a lot of our own legal work, she started that business with us. And then we've grown that now into 4 offices. So that services Host and Stay clients' legal requirements, but it also brings clients into group at that legal point. And then we know we've got that suite of services we can offer. So all we're trying to do is basically take a client all the way through from purchasing. So we've got two real estate agency brands. So really, we want to find a property for the client. We want to help them go through that legal journey on the actual purchase. Once they've got it, we want to make sure it's designed right to maximize revenue. We can then refurbish through our maintenance and our construction division, the conversion, depending how big the work is, or the design and the construction of that. And then it'll go onto the management platform, the Host and Stay management platform at the back end. So we're trying to join that journey up all the way through, make it hands-free, hassle-free from a client perspective. Because if we don't do that, then we have to interact with so many parts of the process where we're subcontracting out to third parties. Then we're losing control from an SLA point of view, from a quality point of view, from a customer service point of view, but also from a revenue and margin perspective. So our model is to vertically integrate that margin. So we don't need to be the most expensive or the cheapest on any of those processes or any of those parts of the process. We can be price competitive and we can retain margin because we're taking a bigger slice of the pie all the way through that journey.
Absolutely. You've just created a one-stop shop for people instead of going to different things. They just come to you for everything.
Yeah, completely. And for us, it's about stickiness, right? We want to keep as many clients within that group as possible. So anywhere a client has to go out of group to get a service, well, our longer term plan is we want to bring that in. So let's take, finance and mortgages and insurance. At the moment, we work with partners on those, but at a certain point in time, we'll bring those into group because it makes sense. We've got a captive market, we've got the client base there to service them. And when we market that as an outward facing brand, that will bring more clients into group at that point, and then we'll be able to offer them, additional ancillary service through the rest of the brands.
100%. That's awesome. Now we'll get into more of the industry thoughts. So what's one of the most exciting things about the real estate sector area right now?
I think the short-term rental and vacation rental sector for me is really exciting. I think it's been on a really strong journey in the last 5 years. Even with COVID, obviously there was peaks and troughs during the COVID period, but I think the vacation rental industry, short-term rental industry, whichever you want to coin it, has come out much stronger. It's evolving rapidly. We've seen a big rise from a technology point of view in that space. There's, I don't know how many 10,000 different property management systems out there and pricing systems. So I think it's exciting that we're probably going to go through a bit of consolidation in the next couple of years from a technology point of view in the space. But yeah, for me, that's one of the really exciting parts. I think where it's relatively early, I suppose, in its journey, but it feels like we're evolving and maturing and professionalizing the industry pretty quickly, which I think is great. And for me, that's, the excitement of that versus the residential and commercial, which we still do little bits of, but that's not why I get up out of bed in the morning. It's the vacation rental stuff for me that really drives me and what I love. And the hospitality side of it, dealing with guests, dealing with owners, you don't get that in other parts of property investment.
What's one trend that either you're seeing approaching or that's happening right now that you think is going to make a big splash in the vacation rental space?
I think one of the biggest, whether it'll make a splash or not, is regulation. I think that's one of the biggest things we're seeing. I think then that's in every market across the globe, really. I think you guys in the US, it's much more regionalized. So I know you've got different state and county laws on licensing from a short-term rental point of view. If we look at the UK at the moment, Scotland has just put in place short-term rental licenses. England's going through consultation. So I think that's probably one of the biggest potential issues coming up in the industry, I guess. And it's just kind of seeing what happens with that. But on the flip side, I also do think it's quite a good thing. I think an element of regulation coming into the industry is a good thing in terms of raising the barrier to entry, right? Because right now it's really easy for someone to list a property on Airbnb and there's no checks from a health and safety point of view to make sure that it's right. And we need some of that type of thing coming in so that we raise that bar and we can all be confident that the type of properties that, ultimately families will be staying in are at a certain standard and there's those health and safety precautions in place. So I think that's it's helped the industry grow and evolve, but it's also still, for me, one of the biggest risks, that we're really stringent on compliance items in properties and health and safety for any new properties coming on. But I know that there's lots of property managers out there and individual operators that aren't. And ultimately, we've got families staying in properties. We need to make sure they are right and that we've got good regulation in place. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges we face. But I think it's also one of the big things that in the next couple of years, as we come through the other side of that, I think it will actually turn out to be a really big positive for the industry.
So is there one thing that on the vacation rental side that you guys are doing really well that hotels could learn from and implement?
It's a little bit different, I guess. I suppose I'm a user of hotels, right? If I'm traveling for corporate travel, I tend to use a hotel. If I'm traveling with a family, I tend to use a vacation rental. I think probably experiences can be a little bit different in vacation rentals. So one thing we're passionate about plays back into that community aspect is that when guests come and stay in one of our host and stay properties, we want to be and we are connected to that local community. So we're driving our guests to spend their pounds because we don't have dollars, so spending their money in local retailers, local coffee shops, local restaurants. I think from a hotel point of view, they miss out on that potential engagement with local communities and local businesses because, ultimately a lot of the hotel chains end up being bigger corporate entities that perhaps don't have the on-the-ground resource to be able to do that. We've got the opportunity to do that in the vacation rental space. And I think that's one thing that sets us apart from hotels is actually we can do that. A guest can come and stay in our property and we can recommend the 5 best coffee shops locally where they need to go and try if they're a coffee lover, or the best Italian restaurant, or whatever it may be. And actually we can, and in the reverse, we know we're having an impact on that local community as well and driving business for that local business and keeping the pounds and pence in those local businesses. We're not pushing them to, the Taco Bells and the McDonald's and whatever else. So that's one of the biggest differences that vacation rentals can have versus hotel chains is that engagement piece, right? We can really engage with those guests and we can really give them an experience in the local community that a hotel doesn't do at the moment. I think they've got the opportunity to do it, but we don't see it at the moment.
As we record this, we're pretty much exactly at the midpoint of 2023. Do you have a tip or some insights on how vacation rentals can improve their ROI moving forward?
2 big points for me really on ROI. One, design of the property, and it doesn't have to be expensive. So whenever I would go and see an owner, I will always be looking for in that property, right, what's the first image going to be? Because ultimately, a guest making a booking that's never been in the property before, we're selling the photography, right? We're not, that's our product in reality. And I feel like a lot of property managers or owners miss that point. So from a design point of view, you're really looking to, right, what are going to be the key features within the property? What's really going to attract someone in and want them to book that property? And what could be the one point of difference on the experience? It might be something as simple as, your property has a really cool coffee machine. Something like what's going to be something that's really point of difference. And then the second is professional photography. So for me, we work on the fact that within 5 photographs, that guest is going to know whether they want to book that property or not. So image number 1 needs to grab the attention, because if image number 1 is no good, they're going to scroll past the listing and not click. So, but we need to have the design right, because no matter how good the professional photography is, if the design isn't right, then we're still going to be missing opportunities. So if we've got the right design and the right photo quality, that's going to get the click to then take them through to the listing page. Once you're on the listing page, within those first 4 or 5 photos, they're going to know whether they're going to go on and book that property or whether they've already hit the back booking and they're back into listings. So making sure you look at those first 4 or 5 photos and say, right, are you telling a story in those first 4 or 5 photos? Have we sold that property to the guest within those? And that, for me, I mean, you just have to do a search on Airbnb and scroll down and see how many people are missing the point on that ultimately, and missing out on maximizing what the potential of that property is, because that quality is what really drives it. And that's been a big focus for us from day one is exactly that: right design and right presentation of the property, because ultimately that's what you're selling.
Absolutely. And do you have any, I guess, advice for those that are thinking about, getting into the Airbnb space, I guess specifically about building their brand, if they should build their own brand more or rely on, OTAs more? Do you have any advice for those folks?
Yeah, certainly, Steve. So I think, there's a lot of interesting debate in the space around OTAs and direct bookings. It's getting more and more prevalent, but look, we built our business on utilization of those OTAs, which kind of comes back into my last point. The OTAs there are a platform to give you the reach. So it's up to you to then market your property in the right way to maximize that reach. And the OTAs do exactly that. They give us that reach. So what we have always done, however, is even when we had just one vacation rental, that vacation rental had its own website, even in the basic form, so that if someone booked through booking.com or Airbnb, as soon as we had them inside the property, all of our communication off platform is to encourage that guest to stay with us directly next time. And that's not always going to happen, because some people love to book through Airbnb consistently, or they love to book through booking.com and it's habit, right? But for some people, we've got to have that journey. So once you've secured the booking through Airbnb and booking.com, it's then looking and say, right, well, what's the rest of that journey for the guest? Where are all the touch points I can communicate my brand to them? Or even if that is just, me as a brand, as an individual host, I can tell them why they should come back and stay with me again next time, and give them the opportunity to book direct and having those tools in place. So I've been a big believer in that from day one. And then as we've grown the Host and Stay brand, in the early days, we had individual properties all with individual websites. And then when we launched the Host and Stay brand, that got consolidated. So our focus has then been on building that Host and Stay brand. But I think it's a balance. So currently, we take 75% of our bookings through the OTAs and 25% direct. We want to get up to 50-50 because I think that's a healthy balance. And we don't want to be over-reliant on OTAs. But on the flip side, we're never going to generate the reach of Airbnb and Booking.com. So for me, they're fantastic partners at casting the net and generating bookings. We need to deliver the experience for the guest on the ground and do a great job that makes that guest think, I'll tell you what, next time I'm looking, I'm just going to go straight to Host and Stay because I know their properties are on Airbnb, but I know they've got fantastic properties and I love what they do and the great experience. So I'm just going to go and book with those guys direct. But we also know that you're never going to get away from those that continue to book through the same platforms. And they're always going to, Airbnb and Booking.com and all the other platforms available, if you like, they're going to bring in guests that we wouldn't necessarily say are our core guests. So in the UK, we're 90% domestic travel. So we're never going to spend our direct marketing pounds on trying to pull in that 10% from overseas. So Booking.com and Airbnb gives us that incremental overseas market that we wouldn't get if we were trying just purely to drive direct bookings. So I'm a big believer there's a place for every aspect in that marketing journey. It's about utilizing that. And then ultimately it comes then back down to selling your brand and developing your brand around that guest experience and giving that guest a reason to rebook you with you again once they've stayed with you.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to somebody who's starting out in the vacation rental space, an entrepreneur who's looking to get into the space, make an impact? What advice would you give to somebody who's starting out?
There's lots of opportunity. I suppose if they're looking to get in and invest, it's kind of back to that, pick their lane of where they want to be. So if they want to get into vacation rentals, right, do you want to operate in the upper quartile of the market? So, what I would call 4 and 5 star properties. Or do you want to operate in the corporate market? And it might be a little bit lower standard, possibly. It's higher volume, maybe lower ADRs. We have a market we call the contractor market in the UK, which we don't really play in, but it's, mainly focused around construction companies and travel and subcontractors. And they, again, higher volume, longer length of stay, lower margin, most likely. So I think really picking the lane that you want to run in and sticking to that as well, and really getting good at one of those. And then anybody else in terms of opportunities in the sector, I see one of the biggest opportunities and one of the biggest issues we have at the moment is we all talk about growth of the industry and technology to facilitate, growth and scale. And I think we miss a fundamental point, which is the on-the-ground team. So as we continue to grow to 5,000 properties, technology is obviously going to help that. But the bit we can't live without is our housekeepers, our maintenance guys who need to keep on making sure those properties are right and ready for the guests coming in. And I think every time I go to an industry conference, we all talk about technology and dynamic pricing and which PMS to use. And we don't talk about housekeepers and what's the best process for those guys and how are we training them, development and retention. And these are all the things that if the industry is going to continue to grow, this is actually going to be the bit that holds us back. And for me, they're some of the biggest challenges. It comes back to that hospitality piece, right? It's about, are the properties going to be ready? Are they the best standard? And how we treat those guests. It comes back down to the people. And I think we miss it. We miss on that. But that's the bit we're passionate about. And I see the opportunity industry is for someone to really get hold of that, because that's really, really valuable, right? You can have, say, all the tech, but if you haven't got the housekeepers, you haven't got the process, the on-the-ground people really well trained, you're not going to be able to grow your brand and not going to be able to scale the business.
Absolutely. The people make the business go. So I love that. But so John has been sitting in listening this whole time. So he's got the final question here for us.
All right, Dale, you're talking about your love of soccer. I'll call it football for the sake of the conversation. What is your football club? Who do you cheer for?
My team. So apart from Redcar Athletic, my boyhood club is Middlesbrough Football Club. So that's the team that I support. Yeah. So once we're a Premier League team,
I know it's a fierce loyalty.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. cradle to grave loyalty, John, is what it is.
That's awesome.
So, Dale, that brings us to an end of another episode of the Modern Hotelier. We'd like to give you an opportunity right now to plug away. Let us know where people who are listening can find out either about you or your properties, your companies. So the floor is yours now.
Cool. No, guys, thanks for having me. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Definitely, that's my my social channel of choice. So you'll find me. I think Dale_PVL is my handle on LinkedIn. But if you search Dale Smith and SDDE Smith Group, you'll find me. And yeah, check out our SDDE Smith Group website. You'll see all of our brands. And if you're interested in the hospitality vacation rental side, our host and stay business at hostandstay.co.uk. But yeah, love, guy. Fantastic chatting to you. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Yep. So that does it for another episode of the Modern Hotelier. We appreciate you being on, Dale, and thank you to all those who are listening or watching.
Today's episode is sponsored by SmartBrief. SmartBrief is the leading publisher of targeted business news and information by industry. By combining technology and editorial expertise, SmartBrief delivers the most relevant industry news in partnership with leading trade associations, professional societies, nonprofits, and corporations. The SmartBrief network comprises 275 newsletters across 14 major business sectors, reaching over 6 million subscribers. Specific to the travel and hospitality market, SmartBrief publishes newsletters for the hotel, casino, airline, travel advisor, business traveler, and resort development markets, reaching over 100,000 subscribers. The Hotel and Lodging SmartBrief is published daily, and you can subscribe to all SmartBrief newsletters at smartbrief.com/subscribe.
You made it to the end of the Modern Hotelier. Thanks for listening. The Modern Hotelier is produced by Make More Media. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, or follow wherever you get your podcasts. If you know of a guest or sponsor that would be a good fit, feel free to email us at hello@themodernhotelier.com. Thanks and have a great day.